Hello, everyone. My name is Gladys Berkowitz, Director of Student Engagement Programs, and today I'm very happy to have Chancellor's Research Fellows with us today who are going to talk about their experience in connecting to undergraduate research. I'm going to ask each fellow to introduce themselves. Beatrice, would you tell us your major, your year, and the kind of research you're involved in?
Yeah. So hello, I am Beatrice. I am a fourth year biochemistry major. And I work in the botany and plant science department where we are researching how plant cells divide and division orientation using plant cells as a model.
Thank you. Hannah.
Hi, yeah, my name is Hannah. I am a fourth year environmental sciences major. My research is also in the environmental sciences department. I'm in a watershed hydrology lab and we research on plastic pollution, both macro and microplastics in waterways here in LA.
Thank you. And Andrea.
Hi, my name's Andra and I'm a math major and my research is the plant sciences field and I research ways to make rice survive better underwater. So tackling the problem with food insecurity.
Great, great. Okay, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to let the fellows run most of the presentation. But we want this to be interactive, so they're going to share a lot of their experiences. And if there's any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just type it into the chat.
Oops, sorry. All right, so before we get into details of like how you get into research, I want to talk more about the benefits of being involved in research as an undergrad. So one of the, I think, actually a really useful benefit is that you get to apply some of the coursework you learn in the classroom and you get to really apply it in real life issues and problems. And you kind of get to see these topics in action and it furthers your understanding of those topics and can even like help you in the classroom setting as well. And you also have a very unique opportunity to contribute to your field. And that work that you've done can be published and can be part of a publication that your lab does. Another benefit is being able to connect to different faculty members and really networking with different people. And one of the key part of being involved in research and doing science is talking about your science and talking about your research. And that could be through like a formal setting, whether that's presenting at like national conferences or symposiums, or it could be even more casual settings like any like social events that like your department is hosting. But regardless of like the circumstance, you're going to be talking about your science a lot and you're going to be talking about it to other scientists and even faculty. And so you could potentially form these different connections and even collaborations with these faculty members. And by building these relationships, they could be potential writers of letters of rec. And being a part of a lab can also be a part of your support network. And so personally speaking, arguably, I think this is one of the most important benefits of research. So when you're working under a lab, under a professor or a PI, you can form a mentor-mentee relationship with them. And so this can be very valuable to you as an undergrad. They can help you a lot with just general advice of how to navigate undergrad and your classes. They can steer you to different opportunities or grants or fellowships that they want to help you apply for. And they can even give you insight of what it's like to be a researcher or a scientist or going to grad school. And even if that's not something you want to do, they still want to support you in any way they can. So if there's any information on whatever like career that you want, they'll try their best to help you with that. And you can also get a support network with the lab itself. So your graduate students, they can also give tips and advice to you as an undergrad, and also your fellow lab mates as well. They can be very helpful in supporting you. And I just think that that support network is very important in, I think, in your success as an undergrad. And I just think that's a very important benefit of being in research. And also there are a lot of paid opportunities that come with research. I think that a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually get money doing research through different grants, fellowships, and different summer research programs. And we will talk about those programs later on in the presentation. But that is something that is nice to take advantage of, is doing research and also getting paid and getting money to do it. And lastly, it can just open doors to amazing opportunities. And it can lead to pathways, career pathways that you never thought of or never really been exposed to. For me personally, being in research and just being involved in research as an undergrad helped me want to pursue a career in research. I didn't know what it's like to be a scientist or what graduate school entailed, but after doing it myself, that's something that I now want to do. And right now I'm applying for graduate school to pursue a PhD. And so if anyone or have the slightest bit of interest or curiosity of what research is like, even if you know, as of right now, if you think that research isn't something you want to do career-wise, I still would say just go for it, just because you just don't know like what you're going to run into or what you'll discover along the way.
So I'm going to be going over some common misconceptions people have about research. The first one being that you have to be really smart. Research labs just want someone who's willing to learn and engage themselves. I actually joined my research lab before I even took biology in college. So I didn't really have any background in biology, and they took me in and I learned a lot because of it, and I could apply that knowledge to my classes. So you don't have to be super, super smart, and you don't have to be excellent in that subject going in. Professors just want someone who's willing to dedicate themselves, and they want people who are passionate about learning. Second one being needing prior experience. That's not true at all. It's really rare for a high schooler to do research, and professors know that, so they don't require any type of experience. Some professors do say like, oh, I recommend you to take chemistry before you join my lab, things like that, but not every single lab is like that. Another misconception is you start off washing petri dishes and flasks. If you are in a research lab that makes you do that, then my advice is to maybe find a new research lab or talk to them, say you want to do a project, because that's not okay if they're making undergraduates only do chores in the lab. That's not what research is. Also, misconception is there's no freedom in projects. A lot of professors like to see your input and what you can provide towards the project. Yeah, maybe the basis of the project is their idea, but it isn't strictly their idea. You can also implement your ideas as well, and they really like that if you take initiative. You have to be the same major as your PI. That's not true, because I'm a math major and I'm in a plant bio lab. So you could be any major you want. They actually like how I'm a math major because I can do some certain skills and things with like statistical tests and ANOVA that they don't know how to do. So even being another major as your PI can sometimes be an advantage. Last one, you're just a volunteer. It's unpaid. I started off doing research volunteer unpaid because I wasn't really into it for the money, but eventually, like now I am paid, and there's a lot of different grants like CRF, a bunch of different opportunities. I think like the main thing is if you're trying to get into research, it shouldn't really be for the money. It should be like for the research and for learning, but down the line, you can definitely apply to grants and scholarships, and we'll get more into specific grants and scholarships later in the presentation.
I just wanted to add, you know, when you first start in the lab, sometimes you will have to start off by washing petri dishes or doing things that you don't think are contributing, but it's really important because if those petri dishes aren't ready for the next experiment, you're holding things back. So starting off is your opportunity to show that you really care. Ask questions about how the research is being done. Be proactive, be there on time, show that you want to contribute, and you will be moved from washing the petri dishes to other opportunities. So a part of it is you being self-motivated and showing that you really want to be there. Sometimes there's lots of students that are in the lab and the faculty is really assessing who looks like they're very interested, who wants to really delve deeply into the research. So if you can demonstrate that, you're quickly going to move up. Also with the paid opportunities, they're going to go to those students that are showing that they're really committed to the research that's happening there. So for your benefit, make sure that you're showing that yes, you want to be there and that you're doing everything to help contribute, and you'll have a really good experience.
Yeah, I think that was really good. Going off what Gladys said, I guess I was kind of emphasizing that like it's not okay to be doing that, but when I first started my lab, I was kind of like only doing greenhouse work, like only picking the seeds for like the first 2 months. And then that's kind of like your trial period. It's not like you're gonna start day one doing a very complicated experiment because if you're not competent, or that can sometimes be dangerous. So it's kind of like taking baby steps towards like the real big experiments.
Right. I'm going to go over this slide really quick. Yeah, to go off of what Gladys and Andrea were saying. I agree. It depends on the lab that you're in, what that like sort of trial period activity is. I'm in a microplastics lab, and a lot of people start out picking the microplastics, which is like the more time consuming thing. But yeah, just over time, showing that you're interested in the project, because really that's what's going to determine whether or not you are going to stay in the lab, right? Is how interested you are. So if you show like a lot of excitement, and sort of like upward projection through the group, and you are curious and asking questions, then yeah, that'll definitely help your progression. Okay, so I'm going to go over the slide about tips to getting started. So kind of going off of what I was just saying there, I'm having a passion for the faculty's research. Being really interested in what you're studying is going to, I believe, determine long-term if you stay in lab. And you also don't have to know, everything. It's, I wouldn't expect you to know everything that you're interested in now if you don't have a lot of experience. But yeah, so reading about the professor's research, going on to Google Scholar, looking up their name, or you could go, I know for the environmental science department, each professor has their own website. I'm sure it's like that in most departments. And then you can go and see their completed projects. And then you can also, whenever you begin to email them, ask about their current projects to sort of know what they have coming up in the works. Yeah, so just showing to them whenever you do make your first contact that you have done your background research, that you do know about their prior research and are interested in seeing what they're doing in the future. So for me, graduate students have been a really great tool because, at least in my experience, my PI doesn't have himself a lot of active research projects. He's more applying for funding and doing things like that and helping out the graduate students. So it's going to be likely more day to day, you're going to be working with graduate students. And a lot of people have, especially now with the pandemic and things have been backed up, a lot of people have a lot of like samples and things to work through. So contacting graduate students, whether that be your TAs or asking your TAs, hey, do you know anyone who's working on X, Y, and Z who would be needing help? That's a really great tool. Don't give up on emailing, definitely. It has taken me maybe even a month in the past to get emails back from people, just because, oh, I was working really hard on this, applying for this one grant, so I was sort of, not answering emails. I've gotten that before, people who've been out in the field. But yeah, don't think it's, personal against you. These people have tons of, even as undergrads, I know we get lots of emails. So then just imagine, if you've gotten all the way to a professor's position, how many inquiries they have coming in on a day. So don't think that you're badgering them. I mean, don't email them like 3 times a day for weeks, but just, yeah. So like about once a week would be good if you didn't hear from them. And yeah, just if you're really interested, yeah, it's definitely worth it to keep trying to make contact with them. Getting funding to join a research program is an awesome way to get your foot in the door. Just in, whether undergrad research or a graduate program, I'm experiencing this now, applying for grad programs. If you have your own funding, like, you are definitely a big asset to the team. It does, yeah. So again, you would be getting paid for your work, or your research would be funded. So that does definitely increase the odds of you getting into not just a lab, but a lab that you really want. So if you're reaching out as Andra said, you don't necessarily have to have related coursework. They may want that. I started research my first quarter here at UCR, so I had no prior like course related background. And that ended up being fine for me, but for some labs, depending on how much, yeah, I guess it just depends on the lab. So if you do have related coursework, that's great. You could attach that. Or if not, you can just say, hey, I'm willing to learn. So if there's anything you think I should read up on or do beforehand, let me know. And then also having a polished resume is great. There's tons of resources on campus at the Writing Center. And then we also have a resume workshop ourselves. I don't know if anyone has a date or time or if it's already been done and there's a recording for that. But yeah, so definitely having a polished resume. So there's resources on campus, and then also asking people in your field is great whenever you're working through your resume, because they'll sort of know the things that would be great to highlight that know your experience so far.
Yeah, and I would just want to add that you're not alone. So ask your fellow students that are in research labs, or look at programs like we have here where we have fellows who are willing to help. Writing their email to let a faculty member know you're interested, making it concise, telling them why you're interested in their work, if you have any experience, or highlighting some things that you've done in your resume where you can say, this is the reason why I want to work with you. I know that you've done this. Can I please schedule a time to talk to you? Attached is my resume. So it's something just concise. And again, reach out to people to help you in making sure that that email is professional. And again, as Hannah said, faculty get so many emails that you want to make sure that what you're sending comes across very professional and to the point, so they know exactly what you're looking for and if you are a fit. So having that resume there makes it easy for the faculty.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about like how to get research and how to kind of have your foot in the door. First thing you can do is just stalk different department websites that you're interested in, like various departments that, whether it's chemistry, biochemistry, whatever, and then go look at different faculty labs website and just kind of like literally just like stalk around and read their research summary, what their current projects are. And so that can give you like an idea of whether or not you may be interested in working on those projects. And also it gives you like kind of that knowledge too, because if you're going to be emailing them, it's a good idea to be like, hey, I'm really interested in your research because XYZ, I'm really interested in your current project that so-and-so is doing. And so that kind of gives you, it kind of shows that you are invested and that you're actually interested. And while you're on the website, another thing that you can look at is look up who's in their lab, like any current members, because you can also reach out to graduate students, because sometimes like, PIs can be really busy, but you can definitely reach out to one of the graduate students and ask like, hey, I'm really interested in your lab. Is there a possibility you can like set up a meeting with me and your PI? So that's also a great resource. And also a good idea is look at how many undergrads they have, whether it's current undergrads. And if they have it, I know some lab websites have, they include past lab members, and it's a good idea to look at past undergrads as well. I just think that if a lab tends to have a lot of undergrads, more likely than not, then that particular PI is also very supportive of undergraduate research. And so that's like one of those like key things to look out for. And even on the website, they may even indicate if they're looking for undergrads or they're looking for new students. And sometimes they even have like, oh, email is here. So it's a good idea to look at just different lab websites, just kind of like browse and shop around. And another way is to go to office hours. I know one of the most common advice is to go to your professor's office hours. And I think that's a good idea too. And I definitely know some people who that's how they got into their lab, is by consistently going to professor's office hours, form a connection, and then just kind of bring up the question of like, hey, I'm really interested in working with you. But I think one advice that is not talked a lot about is going to your TA's office hours, because TAs are graduate students that work in these labs. And TAs are more approachable. So if you are feeling more intimidated by professors, then maybe going to TA's office hour is a bit better. And also you have a smaller class size, so I think it's easier to form a connection with these TAs and just like, talk with them on a more, I think, casual note than if you were with a professor or faculty. And so if you go to TAs, and then, you can also ask about potential openings in research labs, whether it's their own research lab, or maybe they can even direct you to another lab saying like, oh, I know a graduate student who's working in this lab and I know they've been looking for undergrad, so I can like direct you to them. So that's I think, and also a very valuable resource to take advantage of. Another way is to attend different events and talks. One example is the undergraduate research symposium we have here at UCR held in the spring. And just by going to the event, you can be able to just talk and network with other professors who are attending and even other undergraduates. I think talking to other undergrads who are in labs can give you some valuable advice and information about like different opportunities or different lab openings as well. And of course, reading emails for different opportunities. Different programs and research opportunities are usually advertised via email by different departments. One good source for those opportunities is the student engagement emailing list. So if you haven't signed up for it, I encourage you to do so. I'm sure there'll be some information on how to do that by the end of the presentation by Gladys.
Okay. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Jonathan Abal, and I'm also ACR fellow for this year. In terms of research programs that you can join, UCR has a plethora starting from your first year at UCR all the way up into your senior year. So to start off, there's a lot of opportunities for freshmen in the CNAS learning communities. So the first one is RISE, Research in Science and Engineering program. Really awesome program because you get to conduct research with a faculty member as a freshman once you've completed your learning community time. So as long as you stay in the learning community an entire year, you can apply for this program. Generally, requires you to reach out to that professor that you want to work with over the summer, starting around fall quarter. Toward the end, you submit your application in winter and spring, and hopefully you hear back. Has a wonderful stipend to it, $5,000, and you're also doing something that you really enjoy for first exposure to research. There's also another program for learning communities, specifically for students that took the Bio 20 class, or otherwise known as the Dynamic Genome class. So the SALSA program is really cool because if you've taken Dynamic Genome, you are selected out of all the students there to participate in this program. This process still requires an interview, unlike RISE, but you don't have to submit a proposal unlike RISE with a faculty. You just have to make sure you get to the interview stage and do well there. That's a wonderful program that Beatrice and I had the honor of doing way back in 2019. So definitely encourage you all, I'm gonna check that out. And then also there's MarQ Star. So this is a research program that's based more on a focus of biomedical sciences, if you're into that research as well. And it's really cool because you get to spend your time learning what your professor does within that area of research for about 2 years. So you get trained, you get a stipend every single quarter in order to pay off for tuition, so you can focus on research in addition to doing more classes. And this is all to kind of help you be on the path to go to graduate school for biomedical research. So another great program that I definitely recommend. And then also for second and third years, we have Persist. So Persist is similar to RISE, but it's for second and third year almost students who did participate in a CNAS learning community. I can also get about 4,500 in that program. There's also the USpark program. So this program is for students who are interested in doing agricultural research, plant bio. So if you find yourself in that kind of lab, or you're interested in kind of doing that program, definitely consider doing that. I believe Beatrice is probably the person you want to go to for that as well, with her experience. And then also, MarQ Star not only has a school year program in which you get trained for about 2 years, you can also do their summer version as well, if you're interested in that. And then also we have CAMP, the California Alliance for Minority Participation. That's a absolutely wonderful organization that kind of helps undergrads get research experience. So once you join that organization, you can learn how to apply. There's usually an application which you can get $1,000 stipend to work for that and get a research experience. And then also there's a summer program that's UC-wide, so not only for UCR, called UC Leads. So you also get to participate with faculty, not only at UCR, but faculty at all other UC institutions. And it's not restricted only to science, like the ones above. It could be really in almost any field, as long as you have the right a proposal. So please feel free to reach out for that. That one is 7K. And then lastly, we have a lovely Chancellor's Research Fellowship, incredibly prestigious award, which again, you're not restricted for your research in terms of what you can do. It can be in pretty much almost any field that you want, as long as you read CRF guidelines. So we definitely encourage you all to reach out for that. Next slide, please. All right, so now we're gonna get into our experience in research. So does anyone want to start us off with that?
I could go first. So my experience with research was that I was a first year, and I kind of just heard that people were like, oh, you should get involved in research. And I didn't really have a certain professor that I was close with at the moment, because this was fall quarter first year. So I just decided to just Google different CNAS professors, and I wanted to do a biology lab. So I looked up like biology professors at UCR, and I was kind of just going through looking at different websites. And I think I picked like 7 or 8 different professors that I really liked. And I just emailed them, gave them a little introduction, like, oh, my name's Andra, I'm a math major, I'm a first year. And instead of making it like super generic, I actually looked into their research, and I said, oh, I'm specifically interested in how you research different rice plants, like I tailor it specifically to the research. Just say like, I'm eager to learn, I'm not looking for a paid opportunity. And I emailed like 7 or 8 professors, and I only got 2 responses. So one of them got back to me saying that she prefers second years. So I couldn't do that one. She said, take 1 year of like college, and then like you can get back to me. But I really wanted to get involved sooner. And then for the second email, the PI actually didn't respond, but the postdoc emailed me saying like, oh, the PI forwarded me your email, and are you available for an interview? And then I had an interview with the postdoc first, and then the PI was the second interview. And that's just kind of how I got started with it. And then, yeah, it's been great ever since then.
All right, Andra, if you're done, I can go next.
Yeah, you can go, Hannah.
All right, yeah, so my experience with research, I'm in environmental, and we get a decent amount of emails from the department looking for undergraduates to volunteer to help, because it is sort of a heavy lift having to do field collection as well. So we got an email about a project where I was working with a graduate student, essentially doing my own little mini project where we each got to select a site and then do a trash cleanup. So we would clean up this site like a certain number of times a week and then collect data on it. So it wasn't super technically involved. And looking back on it, I realized it was just sort of a way to find students who could demonstrate that they could start a project, follow it through, get the data, and then analyze the data afterwards. And then after that project, I wanted to keep doing research in plastics and waste management. So I just kept bugging the graduate student and PI, and they were just throwing me different projects they needed help doing microplastic picking. So I volunteered for a quarter, and then they were doing some computer science stuff. So they helped direct me to some like free courses on campus to learn how to start coding. So I did that. So for my first year, I just volunteered, and then that summer they had a funding opportunity come in to do research abroad in India, and all of the graduate students had recently accepted different fellowships, so none of them can do it. So they were like, Hannah, do you want to do it? Like, we'll train you and make sure that you're ready and everything, because they really wanted to work with this group. And I was like, yeah. So I did that for a bit. And then I helped my PI and graduate student apply for funding for another computer science project that I worked on, conveniently started right before the pandemic. So I was able to do a bit of research over the pandemic. So I'm writing first author paper on that right now. And then, yeah, I'm working with some of the other graduate students in the lab. So for me, it's very much just been like project-based, like what's been available in my lab. So working, being flexible of doing field work or lab work or computer work, and just basically seeing who needs help. And in that way, I've gained a lot of experience with different backgrounds, like nonprofit backgrounds and more like research lab-based, or yeah, like academics. And then I've also, developed a few wide set of skills. So yeah, just, I guess in the long run, chasing the money, chasing the funding, and just rolling with whatever pops up. And, if there's something, you start a project and you're like, wow, I really don't like this. They usually don't last very long anyways. So yeah, just dipping your feet in as much as you can now, I feel like is really helpful in deciding what you think you want to do in the future. Yeah, so yeah, definitely just trying to get as much experience as possible. All right, Beatrice, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Let's see. So I wouldn't consider this like my first experience in research, but back in freshman year, fall quarter, I had to take like a freshman seminar, and it was led by one of the faculty. And I think I reached out to her because she was talking about her lab and research. And I was just curious. I was like, oh, if there's like an opening, I would love to work in your lab, just like volunteering. And she forwarded me a contact with her postdoc. And so I just met with the postdoc, and that's how I got into the lab. But I wasn't really working on anything. I was doing the typical like washing dishes and, doing like the menial chores. And it was just kind of like it was just very casual, and I didn't see myself like moving up. And so I ended up dropping it. I think probably like winter quarter-ish, just because like I didn't see myself. It was a very discouraging I think situation at the time, just because like I'd expected like I get to be working on these really cool projects, and I just ended up washing dishes, and it didn't seem like there was any opportunity for me to work up. It was just, I could just tell just based on like they're just probably really busy, which is fine. But that was like, I guess, quote unquote, my first research experience, although I don't really count it as that. But then in spring quarter of my freshman year, I took dynamic genome, which is Bio 20, as Jonathan explained earlier. And honestly, like that class literally like changed like my entire trajectory. Just because in that class, they teach you a lot of these basic like research skills, like learning how to pipette, learning how to do PCR and genotyping. And at the end of the course, you actually get to work on a faculty project as a class. And so that was kind of like my first taste into like what research is like, which is the idea of like you're finding out an answer to a question that no one really knows. And I think that was really exciting for me, because I remember I was asking my instructor and the professor, like, how do I like, what is going to happen? Like, I don't know, like, what is this for? And he told me like, I don't know, like, that's why you're doing it, is that you're finding out this new answer. And like, to me, that was very new, right? Like if I had a question, I asked like a professor or TA and they would have an answer. But this was the first time where I was found in a situation where like we didn't know the answer. That was the whole point of us doing this experiment. And that was really exciting. That was really new. And that what encouraged me to apply to SALSA, which is the Bio 20 dynamic genome branch of RISE, the summer research program. And I did it, got through the interview, and I made it. And I was one of, I think like 5 or 6. They placed me in a faculty lab. They worked with these faculty before, and because I got an upstairs and they know me, I guess they decided that I would be a good match. And they were right. Like it's amazing like how much I really like the lab, and I got along really well with the lab there. And so that's in the current lab that I'm in under Dr. Kellen Rasmussen in the botany department. And so after that summer of 2019, they put me on a project like that. They were like, this is a project that we've been wanting to do since, you know, you're with us for the summer, like we would like you to work on it. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And that 10 weeks was probably like one of the most exciting like summers I've had, just because, you know, I was on my own project. It was very exciting work that I was doing. I felt like what I was doing was really important. I was actually contributing to the lab. And after the end, what we found out through that project was it was basically our hypothesis was wrong. We thought this was going to happen and it ended up not happening. And we were like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And, you know, I stayed on the lab till then. They asked me at the end, like, hey, would you like to stay on and continue working on this project? And I said, yeah, just because it was exciting work. And I felt like what I was doing was important and matters. And like, honestly, that experience really kind of changed like my career trajectory. And that's what led me to want to pursue science and research as a career. So yeah, so I've been working in that lab ever since. And I would say like it's a really satisfying and really rewarding experience. So
Yeah, definitely. If I could just add something on really quick to Beatrice, if you are in a lab, I mean, it's like, again, it's totally normal to start out, you know, washing dishes or working in the greenhouse with recipes picking or whatever that sort of like base level task is. But if you're there for a while and you don't see yourself making any sort of upward trajectory, you're an asset to them. Like I know so many graduate students who their work is really dependent on help from undergraduates. So don't sell yourself short. Don't feel like you need to stay there. Don't feel obligated, even if, you know, you are moving up, but you're not happy there. Like it's your decision to make. So if you could see yourself, you know, like, oh, well, I like research, but I would, you know, rather be doing this, or I, you know, really wish that they would let me do this part of the experiment or whatever, definitely talk to them. And if not, like Beatrice said, it's switching labs is very normal. And I feel like that's,
oh yeah,
it helps you grow. Yeah.
For sure. I definitely think that transitioning out of labs, if you're not happy, I think that's not talked about a lot, but it does happen. And I just feel like if you don't see yourself growing and you're not doing something that you want to do, then I would first obviously talk to the PI and talk to the grad students there if that's something that can change. And if that is not working out, then you owe it to yourself, I think, to go find another lab that can give you that, because there are plenty of labs that can do that. There are definitely PIs out there, labs out there that value undergraduate work, and you just need to go and find them. They're out there, and if it's something that you want to do and you want to grow in and want to learn more about, then just keep looking and keep searching for that.
I think that's really good advice, because oftentimes students feel guilty that I'm in this lab and I can't leave. You have to look out for yourself of where you're going to develop more. And also know the faculty have a list of students that are coming in and saying, I want an experience here. So you don't want to hold that space for somebody who that might be a better fit for them. So know that it's okay to talk to the faculty member and say, I don't see a fit here, or, I want to concentrate on my academics and I'm going to move on. Give them 2 weeks notice. That's part of your professional development, is don't just walk away. Let them know that things aren't working out and that you'd like to resign, and that you're giving them 2 weeks notice. So it gives them time to replace you. And you always want to keep good relationships with people, because you never know where those individuals are going to come up. You might be applying for an opportunity on campus and they're serving on that committee. You don't want to have them say, oh, this person was flaky and they just didn't show up one day. So make sure that you leave on a good professional basis. Jonathan?
Yeah, Gladys, you just said it beautifully, because when I did dynamic genome of Beatrice, I saw research as an opportunity, just like Beatrice, to kind of make something new and get an answer that no one has ever had in their lives before. And when I thought about that, I was thinking, okay, not only can we find an answer, but can we find something that everyday people could find useful in a couple years, a couple of decades. So after my experience with SALSA, the internship program where you get 5K, I reached out to a lot of the upperclassmen that did SALSA and were helping me out during that program, and they told me some incredible advice. Emailing is one way to go. I think it's a little more easier to get in the lab if, like, say for instance, that professor who you want to work with is having some kind of talk, some kind of Zoom meeting, some kind of lecture that they're hosting. And, you know, after you stay a little bit, and then you kind of ask them, you know, whether you want to join. So that's how I got into my current lab. So with school of medicine and Dr. Cheney and Dr. Simmons, they had a talk at medical school. They were kind of going over their previous year's progress, and I just stayed behind and like asked that I was very interested. Thankfully, it was like a series of lectures, it wasn't just one, so I attended the 3 or 4 that they had. And by then, they recognized my face, and they actually offered me to come on board, and I was really grateful for the opportunity. And then during that time, they made it very clear, like right away, that they wanted me to really contribute, that they really wanted to make sure that I could see myself be there, and I really appreciated that. So not every lab does that, but it really is helpful to kind of be very clear upfront and right away know what you're getting yourself into. Not only in terms of your professional development, just practically speaking, right? You're not going to have all the time in order to do research, right? You got to make sure you also have good grades and your family life and so on and so forth. So understanding how much time you have to commit to something right away is really helpful. It helps you figure out, you know, whether you plan to advance or not. And thankfully, my lab, I was able to do that, conducting surveys, or whether it was talking to patients about the research project. So definitely keep that in mind as you're doing research, and don't hesitate to apply for opportunities. If it wasn't for the wonderful people at the Dynamic Genome who kind of said, hey, you know, you could do research to volunteer, but you could also get grants out of it. You can also make a name for yourself out of it. I wouldn't have ever known. So feel free to reach out, make mentors, keep those relationships open wherever you go, because they will come in very handy when you need them. So that's all I gotta say for that.
Thank you all so much for what you've shared. It's really helpful because I'm a first year. So yeah, well, I really want to get into research because I'm pretty interested in it, and I really don't know where to start. So what you guys have shared are really useful, and thank you all for that. And because I still have another meeting at 1, so I might be leaving soon. But just want to reiterate again. I kind of know what to do now. So yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you for attending our workshop.
Bye.
Thank you. We'll send you a copy of this presentation and also a link for you to sign up for our mailing list. That way you're aware of all the other workshops that we'll be doing. But we wish you the best, and feel free to reach out if you have questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.